Hi, welcome back. Here we are together again. This is Botany 101 and my name is Angela Nishimoto. Remember last time, what we talked about? And today we're going to get into the beginnings of how we humans use plants, as food and etc. Alrighty. So today, human nutrition, part 1. Our objectives for today, include some of our nutritional needs, some of our human nutritional needs, yeah? Secondly, we're going to go a little bit into some deficiency diseases, not a whole lot of them because of course there's tons and tons, And then we're going to get into a little bit, here and there about how plants can supply a lot of our needs nutritionally, So sometimes we can even go vegetarian, all right? Okay, first of all, we're going to talk about new ideas in nutrition for one thing, Nowadays, of course, people think that you should eat a lot of fiber, vegetable foods, fruits and things like that have a lot of fiber, all right? Also, people are thinking that we should take monounsaturated oils. So we're going to go into what that means in a little bit, First of all, fiber. Remember this? You might not have seen this exact image before, but it's also shown by this. This is, what do you think? That is cellulose, all right? Remember cellulose? Way back when we were talking about chemistry, plant chemistry, as well as the components of a plant cell. Remember that cellulose is one of the main components of the plant cell wall. So here we have like a cutaway version of a plant cell with all the different, cell wall, and you have the cell membrane, you have the different organelles as well as the nucleus. Remember all that? Yeah, or this is the nucleus, sorry. This is a vacuole, chloroplast, mitochondrion, etc., the endomembrane system, the cytoskeleton, all that good stuff, yeah? So it is actually the plant cell wall that we use as fiber, all right? And for us, it's not digestible. That's why it kind of helps to move things through your body, And monounsaturated oils include olive oil. You can sort of tell that it's olive oil. It has this nice kind of olive green coloration. And of course, olive oil has a delicious taste to it. It's a very healthy oil, Another thing about olive oil, though, that it does not have a high temperature at which it starts to smoke, So therefore, you have to use it to cook at relatively low temperatures. You can't use it for frying, as an example, Also, another fairly new idea in nutrition is actually consuming more plant-based foods. What are plant-based foods? Sort of self-evident. Plant-based foods are foods that are plant-based. They're things like starches, such as, brown rice, pastas, greens, as well as fruits and other vegetables. So people now, even the United States Department of Agriculture is saying now that we should use and eat more plant-based foods. Whereas in the past, they used to recommend that people eat quite a bit of meat, animal protein, as well as taking a lot of milk or milk products, and that's not so much now. All right. So some plant-based foods are some that we talked about before, but we like to kind of reiterate and come back to something that we've seen before. And of course, this is some taro, also known as kalo, corms. Do you remember what corms are? Right? Corms are underground stems. So we don't actually use a root, botanically speaking, eating taro. We actually use the corms. And of course, the rest of the plant is also edible. You can eat the greens. You can cook them like spinach, even though you do have to cook them for a kind of long time. Sweet potato, another excellent source, of nutrients. You can tell, look at this coloration in sort of like the so-called meat of the sweet potato. This shows that this plant has a lot of beta-carotene, and also things like flavonoids, which are very good antioxidants, as well as having vitamin A, or beta-carotene. And the thing too is that if you do adapt your diet to encompass this sort of things, will we have better health? So swimming, of course, is a excellent exercise. So for somebody who does have an injury to their body, swimming can be very good because it takes the effect of gravity off your body. Your body pretty much is buoyant. So swimming is an excellent exercise for people who want to do a little cardio, and at the same time if they have a slight injury, because generally swimming is kind of like a soft sort of thing. The water will actually cushion your body. At the same time, you can use it as a resistance training. Yeah, where the inertia of the water is acting in resistance to your movements of your body. Okay, right? We also, of course, have extreme sports, such as rock climbing. So look at this. For me, in my opinion, I can understand why people like to do this because it's thrilling, very exciting. But I would, there's a lot of other things I would prefer to do. I would be scared to do this personally. But still, I can see different people like different things. Yeah, and of course, think about it. Climbing up a almost vertical face of rock should be like a really, really good exercise. Yeah. All right, so first of all, in terms of nutrition, we're going to talk about macronutrients. And macronutrients are nutrients or food substances that we need in fairly large amounts, okay? And these include the carbohydrates and the proteins and the fats that we consume, all right? Here we have a nice view of some bread. Some people call it the staff of life, oftentimes mostly made of wheat. Sometimes they put oats in here too, or sometimes you have so-called 7-grain breads or 10-grain breads that have a lot of different types of sources, a lot of different species that go into making the bread itself. And here it looks like we have some kind of meal, maybe cornmeal. This looks like wheat. Can't tell that well, and this looks like rice. And here you have spaghetti and macaroni, and I guess this is called rotelli, different kind of pastas, which is also made from wheat. Okay, so carbohydrates, people generally need a carbohydrate base of their diet. Okay, we humans, we also need proteins. And here is a source of animal-based protein. These, of course, are eggs, chicken eggs, yeah? And these eggs happen to be from free-range chickens. That means that these chickens are not, cooped up in a coop, really packed close together and not able to move very much, anything like that. So free-range chickens can actually run around and forage for some of their food as well as being fed other foods such as corn. A lot of corn actually goes to feeding livestock. Okay, so I also wanted to show this because some people consider that the egg is like the perfect source of protein. Actually, in the way of trying to figure out how nutritious different kinds of proteins are, they will actually compare it with 100. So eggs generally are rated at 100, and all other proteins are sort of evaluated in comparison with eggs. Okay. All right, and we also, of course, have fats. Yeah, so here again, we have olive oil, a very good source of fat, okay? In our diet, we don't really need a whole lot of fat, okay? But there are certain proportions that we should actually take for optimal health. You need all three. You need carbohydrates, you need proteins, and you need fats in your diet, or you'll start to get an imbalance in your diet, okay? And so I know that we're going to find this out in a little bit, but fats do have more calories. So some people think, oh, I could lose weight if I cut out all fats in my diet. That's not good because you do need fats because, as you remember, our cells as well as plant cells do have, lipids that are part of the cell membrane that are an integral part of the different parts of our body. So we do need to have fats. We could get sick if we cut them all out, okay? So generally, humans need approximately 1,200 to 3,200 kilocalories a day, kilocalories, okay? So what is a calorie, for one thing? Here we have a little label, okay, that generally in the United States, I think it's by law, that they have to put, a food label on any kind of packaged product, okay? So here we have calories with a capital C. All right, so calories here in terms of 350 kilocalories per serving. So a calorie with a uppercase C is a kilocalorie. It's equivalent to a kilocalorie. So usually when people are talking about calories, they're talking about kilocalories. So what is a calorie? Think about it. You might have come across it in a previous class, maybe not, okay? A calorie itself, it is actually based on the metric system, and it's also based on pretty much physical parameters that don't change. So a calorie is the energy required to raise 1 gram of water or 1 milliliter of water 1 degree centigrade. Okay, so that's how much energy it is. So generally, calories are very small units of measurement. So we generally talk about calories as capital C or as kilocalories. Okay, that is actually more convenient for us. Okay, so calorie, all right? Alrighty, too. So generally 1 gram, okay, 1 gram of carbohydrate or protein is about 4 kilocalories. Okay, so 1 gram. What is 1 gram? 1 gram of water is about 1 milliliter of water, which is 1 cubic centimeter. So you can see this is a very small unit of measurement, and even so, you still have 4 kilocalories. Okay, so carbohydrates or proteins, 4 kilocalories per gram. And fat, okay, some kind of fat, whether it's oils or solid fats, about 1 gram of fat has enough energy in it for 9 kilocalories. So you can see here that fat is actually more than twice the calories, per weight or per volume than carbohydrate or protein. Okay, so there is something when people say, well, if you cut out a lot of the fat in your diet, well, you will probably lose weight. Okay, so since people nowadays are more interested in losing weight necessarily, So generally too, our bodies will use carbohydrates and fats as energy sources, whereas proteins, we tend to break them down and use them for building blocks, okay, to make other substances, because we have many different kind of proteins in our bodies, okay? We're going to go into that a little bit too. First of all, so we'll do a little survey. Okay, so we have carbohydrates. Monosaccharides, do you remember at the beginning of the class, in the first few lectures, we were talking about plant chemistry? Monosaccharides, do you remember what that means? Mono means one, okay, saccharide means sweet, okay, so monosaccharides are simple sugars, okay, and among the most important, okay, for our purposes, of course, is glucose. Okay, so here's a little ball and stick model of glucose molecule. Okay, you can see that it's not that big of a molecule. Each of these little circles are actually standing for an atom, with the black ones here being carbon atoms. Okay, I believe on here you'll have red, and that would be oxygen, and then the white, usually by convention, stands for hydrogens. Okay, so we have those different kinds of atoms making up the glucose molecule. So it does have, C6H12O6, right? 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, 6 oxygens, yeah? Glucose, all right? So it's a small monomer. It's actually a monosaccharide. Okay? Now generally, when we do take in carbohydrates, the complex carbohydrates are broken down to glucose when we do digestion. And generally, remember when we talked about, did we talk about this? That when you actually eat, something starchy, like a cracker, you could actually put the cracker in your mouth and you're chewing it, chewing it, chewing it. If you pay attention to it, okay, if you pay attention to your sensation in your mouth, to the taste, you'll find that cracker, which isn't very sweet at all, as you're chewing it, as your saliva is moistening it and as you're chewing it, it actually starts to taste a little bit of sweet, right? What's happening is that for digestion of carbohydrates, it begins in your mouth with your saliva. Your saliva has an enzyme known as amylase, okay, that helps break down amylose, which is a component of starch, all right? So you begin digestion of carbohydrates in your mouth, okay? This is something having to do with why some people think that you should lower the amount of carbohydrates in your diet if you do want to go on a diet or lose weight, because what they're saying is that you start digesting carbohydrates really quickly, it actually, and just a couple of hours later, you're hungry again, okay? That's what some people think. I think that might be true to some extent, okay? So generally, you have the complex carbs broken down to glucose. So this is a process in our bodies known as cellular respiration. Do you remember what happens? Do you harken back to something that we talked about before? For one thing, recall that generally cellular respiration or aerobic cellular respiration has 3 parts to it. First of all, you start off, okay, so we'll talk about glycogen in a bit, but glucose, okay, so glucose is a starting chemical that we start with to do aerobic cellular respiration. Okay, so what happens is that glucose is broken, the 6 carbon glucose is degraded into 3 carbon pieces, right, known as pyruvate or pyruvic acid. Then it actually goes through a change, so glycolysis happens, then you have a chemical changes going on it, and what goes into the Krebs cycle is acetyl coenzyme A. Okay, so that is something that goes in here, right? The Krebs cycle continues and breaks down the molecule completely. So what you started off with, C6H12O6, all the carbons will have been given off as carbon dioxide gas. Then you have the electrons and other substances going to the electron transport system, okay, where ATP is generated by ATP synthesis, right? Okay, you actually have what they call chemiosmosis, where you have the hydrogen ions pumped against the concentration gradient, and then when they diffuse back through the membrane through these enzymes known as ATP synthesis, that generates the production of more ATP. Okay, so you start off with maybe one glucose molecule, and then you might end up with something like, well, about 36, 34, 36 to 38 ATP, okay, with about a 40% efficiency, which is excellent, okay? All right, so cellular respiration in a nutshell, yeah? All right, so then, okay, we also have the fact that fructose, which is pretty much fruit sugars, that is another kind of monosaccharide. And there's another monosaccharide known as galactose, but galactose doesn't really happen in nature very much in our bodies. But when we do take in fructose or we do have galactose present, generally those are actually transformed into glucose. They both have the same chemical formula as glucose, yeah? C6H12O6, all right? So this is fructose. Okay, so this is a little model. I just want to explain here because I might not have explained before, because you might be looking at this and say, what is that? You know, what are all these things? This just stands for you have an oxygen here bonded to a hydrogen, and every place where you have these little edges here, like here and here and here and here, this is like a model kind of deleting or omitting the carbons, because of course this is a macromolecule or a molecule of life, and remember that they're all carbon based. Okay, so carbon here, a carbon here, a carbon here, etc. Yeah, and where you have the carbon here, okay, they don't really show it, but you have 1, 2 bonds to the carbon that's here, so you know the carbon here will have 1 hydrogen on one side, 1 hydrogen on another. When you're doing chemistry, organic chemistry, you can assume that where you have a carbon, and you assume that when you see a structure like this is where the carbon is, you'll have 4 bonds for the carbon. So here you'll have 2 bonds and 1 and 2. So this one here, this carbon here, okay, will have all its 4 where it wants to share electrons with other atoms. Yeah. Okay. So I'm sorry, I guess we'll see more stuff. And here we have a galactose. Isn't that nice? Look at that, okay? So if you were wanting to count, you know, what was there, you could actually count 6 carbons, okay, 12 hydrogens, and also 6 oxygens, okay, if you wanted to count them. Okay, you don't have to though. Alrighty, so these different kinds of sugars will actually be transformed into glucose. Another thing is we have something in our modern world which wasn't very common years and years ago. It's called high fructose corn syrup. If you were to look at a label on a can of Coke or a can of Pepsi Cola or a can of Diet Pepsi, or not Diet Pepsi, it would be more like Mountain Dew or Dr. Pepper, any kind of soft drink that you could get, yeah? You would actually see on the label, maybe one of the first things, maybe the first thing on the label might be high fructose corn syrup. Now what is this? Okay, this is actually corn starch. You know, corn, which is a grain, remember that's a kind of fruit. When you grind it, you will actually have a lot of starch to it. And of course for the plant, that is something that the plant uses to, you know, keep its embryo alive. The little baby plant inside of the fruit, right, inside of the seed. So what happens is you get the corn starch, and you will actually treat it with enzymes and break down the starch and then change it, and what you end up with is high fructose corn syrup, okay? I have a suspicion that sometimes the people who have corn allergies, because a lot more people have them than they might think, or even people that have a little sensitive stomach, have you ever noticed sometimes that if you drink a modern soft drink nowadays on an empty stomach, sometimes you feel a little funny, you know, you feel like your stomach hurts a little bit? And my suspicion, I have no evidence in this whatsoever, my suspicion is that it may be the high fructose corn syrup that is kind of upsetting your stomach, okay? So this is something that people use nowadays, high fructose corn syrup. All right, so if you look at this graph here, this is actually from the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, okay, and this is actually showing from like the mid-1970s, what was that? Wow, that was a long time ago, but 30 years ago. But here you can see that generally, what is this? Cane and beet sugar. Remember Hawaii, very important in terms of sugar cane. That was very important for our history here in Hawaii. Okay, in the earlier part of the 20th century. So here you have cane sugar, you know, gradually decreasing in terms of per capita use per person. And you have this other sweetener which is not as expensive, because this cane and beet sugar is mostly sucrose, which is a disaccharide, yeah? But this high fructose corn syrup is actually sweeter, okay? It's sweeter than glucose, well, it's sweeter than sucrose, but so they actually have to use less of it to make, you know, a soft drink or some other fruit drink or anything like that sweeter, Okay, so one of the main reasons why we use this high fructose corn syrup, for one thing, we have subsidies for farmers in the United States, right? You have subsidies for corn farmers and farmers who grow soy, which is good. I believe in that. I think that's good. But then what are you going to do with all this corn? Well, you can make this sweetener. And at the same time, you actually be able to use the crops, and also so it's money driven, like so many things in life, okay? This is just something that's true, all right? My own opinion, if you go and buy a soft drink or a lemonade or something that's already ready-made that uses sucrose or table sugar, you'd be surprised. It tastes so much better. Okay, there's a, what is it called? Fuse, something like that, which is a drink that, a soft drink, sort of like a juice that they sell at some places. I guess they have it at Kakao Kitchen and other places like that. It's really delicious. So if you're used to drinking soft drinks, now, and you try that, boy, it really tastes good. To me anyway, that's just my taste. Everybody's taste is individual, Okay, the next thing, so that was monosaccharides. Now we talk about disaccharides, okay? Di means two, and of course saccharides, you know what that means now, okay? So sucrose, which is table sugar. This is the kind of sugar that you find, C&H sugar, or sugar when you go to a diner and they have that little, glass dispenser on there. That's actually glucose and fructose, two monosaccharides joined together, covalently bonded. So here you have a model of sucrose, and now you know that here you have a carbon, here you have a carbon, and etc. Every place where you have these bonds being formed, that you don't have a clear designation of what it is, you can assume that it is a carbon, okay? So glucose and fructose, covalently bonded, making up a sucrose molecule. Also you have lactose. So lactose is, is in this kind of configuration where you have one glucose and one galactose covalently bonded. Okay, and of course, lactose is milk sugar. Okay, it's in human breast milk as well as other kind of milks, which are of course produced by mammals. Yeah, and then you have maltose, which is two glucose units covalently bonded together. All right, so maltose. Okay, kind of important for people who are interested in home brewing, okay, because maltose is a sugar that's found in germinating grains. And when you think of beer, you think of malt beer, you think of different kinds of that kind of, not really high, what do you call that? High, not volt, it's actually not kind of low alcohol content kind of drinks. That generally, the malt that they use for actually making that actually comes from maltose, okay? So it's a sugar that comes down that is broken down from the starch in these grains, because remember, grains are fruits, and the fruits with their seeds, the seed needs to sustain the little baby plant that lives inside of it, right? Okay, so germinating grains has this maltose kind of sugar, okay, disaccharide. And then we come to polysaccharides. Polysaccharides, poly means many, okay, right, many, and saccharide means you have a lot of sugar units. Okay, so these are, almost all of them are made from glucose building blocks. Okay, the glucose being the monosaccharide, which is a subunit making up these different kind of polysaccharides. Okay, so chemistry is very interesting. It's very interesting and it's fascinating, but it's so wonderful because it makes sense when you think about it. Okay, so this here is a model of starch, and as you may recall, starch is the storage molecule that it's in plants. Okay, so starch is used for storage by plants, and starch, of course, remember, carbohydrates have about 4 kilocalories per gram, right? So it doesn't really have that many calories, right? Here's another different sort of configuration, just showing this is the same ring structure. It's just showing more like a little bit of a three-dimensional shape. Yeah, you have the boat and chair sort of configuration, I guess, in chemistry when you have the ring structures. Okay. All right, so starch generally can be found in seeds. Now here we have some sunflower seeds, okay? Here you have fruits as well, okay? And you have tubers, okay? And also taproot, such as these nice looking carrots. So when you look at this food, doesn't it make you want to eat it? Yeah, isn't it delicious looking? Yeah. Okay, also of course wheat. Okay, here you can see the wheat berries here. And you have rice. This is brown rice, of course. It hasn't been milled and polished. Or it has been milled, but it hasn't been polished. And then here you have corn. Acres and acres of corn. Okay? All right, and also we have other sources of starch, okay, including potato. Yeah, white potato, some people call it. Some people call it Irish potato or Peruvian potato. Okay, this is the kind that you can order at a restaurant, you know, with all that other stuff on it, the sour cream and the butter and the chives and the bacon, all that stuff. Okay, but you know, potatoes are actually very nutritious. If you eat enough of them, you'll get even enough vitamin C and things like that that you need. This is one of the reasons why Irish peasants were able to subsist on, you know, mostly potatoes. They actually eat boiled potatoes every day, three meals a day. Okay, very nutritious. And here we have some sweet potatoes, freshly dug. Okay, you can see here that the sweet potato is actually a vine, yeah? And these are tuberous roots, food storage roots that the plant will actually use to store starches and also sugars. Because sweet potato, of course, is sweet, okay? Now, the difference between white potato and sweet potato, can you think about it? What organs of the plant are they, okay? So sweet potato, of course, here, we just talked about that. This here is actually a storage root, whereas a white potato, that is actually an underground storage stem. Remember, the eyes on the potato actually correspond to the nodes on a stem. Okay, so you can actually do see that one is a root, sweet potato, one is actually a stem, which is the Irish potato or the white potato. Okay. And here you have cassava, okay, also known as manioc, also known as, what is it called, tapioca. Okay, this is the little bubbles, those little gelatinous things that are in the bottom of that little bubble drinks that people buy. They're very delicious, but they're really expensive. Yeah, but still, tapioca. I think people use it also for tapioca puddings. Yeah, very good tasting. Another interesting thing about tapioca or cassava is actually, in some varieties of it, they have quite a concentration of an analog to cyanide. So there is a poison in some cassava. This is not something that generally we're going to have to be concerned about, but generally people who do harvest and prepare cassava for food, they have to treat it. They have to actually slice it thinly or grate it, then soak it in several changes of water to leach out the cyanide analog. Or else people could get really sick and they can even die. A few years ago, I think that there were these children, I think in the Philippines, in school, and they ate cassava that hadn't been properly prepared. I think a few of them actually died. Okay, that was just a few years ago. Okay? Alrighty. Also beans and peas, other sources of polysaccharides or starch. Okay? Here we see some green beans. Look at that. Doesn't that look good? And look at these peas. That looks really good, yeah? Especially if they're sweet peas. Another kind of polysaccharide, very important, is glycogen, okay? Glycogen is a storage product for animals, okay? This is one storage product that we animals have, all right? So here you can see it has sort of like a chain, branched sort of configuration. Okay, so it's made up of all these glucose units, and what you have, of course, covalently bonded, and what you'll have is you'll have them all branching out. So it is quite a complex molecule in a way, okay? And of course, if you have blood sugar that's high in your blood, if you have like a lot of blood sugar, like soon after you eat, and you're all kind of energized, and you're feeling really, you know, really energetic, what can happen is that if you do have high blood sugar, you know, after you've eaten, your body will generally make glycogen, yeah, from the sugar units in order to store it. And usually we store our glycogen, what we do is we store it in our liver or in our muscles. Another thing too is if you actually have excess glucose, if you have too much glucose in your blood, because your body will only store about 1 day's worth of energy of glycogen in your liver and in your muscle cells mostly, okay? If you have even more glucose than that, what your body will do, it'll play this joke on you, it'll turn it into fat, okay? And in our modern days, generally, you know, people consider that fat is not good, okay? But we do need some fat in our bodies, okay? We do need it, all right? Or another thing, so some people might remember this, like from before. I don't know, because I'm not sort of doing a lot of exercising that much anymore. But I remember times when I think that I would have like somebody I know, like a friend, who would go to let's see, Antipastos, I think, the one on in Honolulu, and when they're going to do like a Tin Man competition, or hearing about people training for a marathon or something like that, like oftentimes the day before and the night before they're going to do these really strenuous kind of running or swimming or biking or something like that. One of the things they used to do is carbo load. We're actually eating a lot of starchy foods, like, you know, I guess a lot of pasta for sure, you know. And then so what they're doing is they're actually stocking up the glycogen reserve so they can actually do their long distance running or other kind of, you know, sustained exercise, which will actually, you know, deplete your body of the glycogen that you have stored. And so they'll do this carbo loading, and I don't know if people still do that anymore, but I sort of remember people used to do that before. Now another kind of polysaccharide that we sort of mentioned before is fiber. Okay, remember fiber, right? Cellulose, right? Fiber, cellulose, one component of it. Yeah, and generally fiber for us is not digestible. We do not have bacteria in our gut that can break the bonds, okay, between these different glucose molecules making up cellulose. So for us, it's not something that our bodies can break down, or it's indigestible, okay? The next thing too is that there's two types of fiber. There's soluble fiber, and there's several different types. Okay, you can just kind of scan your eye along this. This is all in your textbook. Okay, so don't get all worried about having to, you know, copy everything down all right now. But among them, of course, are the hemicelluloses. You have the pectins. Okay, pectin is like, you know, something that people use to make jellies with. You have fruit pectin. You have gums. Okay, are another type of indigestible fiber. Then you have mucilages. Okay, so this here, kind of interesting. These are modified leaves of the sundew, and here you can see that the sundew has managed to capture an insect. Okay, sundews, like Venus's flytraps, like pitcher plants, like cobra lilies. These are all what they call so-called carnivorous plants. Okay. The reason why they do have these leaf adaptations is they need to trap insects so they can give themselves enough nitrogen, okay, to do the work that their bodies need to do. Because a lot of, I think just about all of these so-called carnivorous plants live in bogs, acid bogs, where the nitrogen poor soil or the nitrogen that is present is not available to the plant due to the high acidity or the low pH or high acidity of the environment that they happen to be in. So amazingly, over all these millions of years, they have evolved the ability to capture insects and then digest them. Because insects, they have structural proteins. So just like us, they digest or break down the insect bodies in order to fuel their body with nitrogen to make proteins and nucleic acids. Okay. Also, there are also algal polysaccharides as well. Okay, so that's sort of one thing that sort of makes algae good to eat. Algae are very, very nutritious for people. Okay, so if you have a chance, they even sell it at the health food store. You know, you can get kelp, you can get other kind of sort of algae products. You know, blue-green algae as well. It's very good for people, I think. Yeah, because taking in chlorophyll is really good. It can even be anti-cancer. This is the truth. This is something that we did when we were in. Myself and my cohort, you know, who did this biochemistry class. We found out that if you do eat vegetables with meats, even charred meats, that will prevent your liver from turning some of the compounds that are generated into cancerous compounds or mutagens. This is true. It was based on the research of the professor, a very excellent professor, who I don't think he teaches at UH anymore, but his name was Dr. Dashwood. Okay. We also have insoluble fiber, okay, including the cellulose that we talked about. Remember lignin too. Lignin is something that are found in secondary cell walls, right? Hemicelluloses as well, okay? So here's a little model looking like this is lignin, okay, here, right? You can see it's kind of complex. So this is something that we cannot digest. Our body cannot break this down. All right, so of course, since this is indigestible, they kind of speed things through your colon. Okay, and some people believe that if you actually have, you know, very regular bowel movements, I mean, some people who are in the health profession, they believe that people should have 3 bowel movements every day, which is kind of amazing, you know. But still, the good thing about these fiber is that these will actually help speed the food through your colon, because they'll say that the longer, you know, stuff sits in there, okay, the more likely you have for whatever food products that you have to cause mutations. And usually if you have mutations usually mean that you have a chance of developing abnormal polyps and other things like that. You know, so cancer is not something to fool around with, you know, and you can actually keep yourself healthy if you eat the right foods. We're going to talk about more of that later, okay? So fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, seed products, okay, whole grains. These are good sources of fiber, okay? So eat more vegetable foods, okay? Eat less meats. I know it's kind of sometimes hard. I know it's hard for me too. When I go to the cafeteria, usually by that time I'm so hungry that I will actually order like a regular, you know, like a regular mini mini meal, but generally it's still very heavy on the animal protein, and that's probably not what you want. You probably want to have the bulk of your calories from plant sources with a little bit of meat, okay, not so much. They have the standard, about credit card size, about this much of meat, for a serving. And usually if you go to a restaurant, what do? You order a piece of fish. Even the fish sometimes is this big, or if you order a steak or lamb or something like that, whatever you have, the steak can be this, even a filet mignon is about that big, and it's thick. It's like that, That's just too much. So that's not good, okay? Too much meat, okay? Even though it is good. I mean, if you like meat, that's good. It's very tasty. Now, of course, here we have vegetables, and here we have fruits, okay? So tomato, of course, legally a vegetable, even though botanically it's actually a fruit, okay? Ambivalence. Tomatoes are ambivalent. I'm just kidding. Okay, so we have seeds here. Okay, these look like lentils. Yeah, doesn't that look good? And see how the nice colors? So when you have, plant sources that have this high coloration, whether it's green, whether it's orange or red or yellow, that usually mean you have a lot of good phytochemicals that can help, help your immune system and such, okay? Alrighty, so here, okay, this here is a whole grain, okay? So whole grain breads, whole grain pastas, those are the best for you, actually, okay? Because what you have is you'll have bran, which is the indigestible part of it, okay? That will also, the function for the plant itself, or for the fruit, is that it protects the fruit, okay? Not just the seeds. Look at this. It protects the seed. It has fiber, B vitamins. B vitamins very important for nerve conduction and different sort of nervous system functions, okay? Trace minerals. Trace minerals are required, but you only need little bits of them, okay? Another component, of this particular grain. Here you have endosperm. Remember what endosperm is? Remember that this is the tissue that is a result of double fertilization. This here, the germ, okay, which is nourishment for the seed in terms of this one here. But the endosperm, remember, you have two sperms. One fertilizes the egg, which results in the which results in the embryo. The other sperm fertilizes the two polar nuclei. So what you'll have is endosperm. Okay, very, very nutritious, very nutritious. Usually the endosperm has oils and also carbohydrates as well, also proteins, okay? So I guess when they say energy, they mean that energy in the form of fats and carbohydrates, right? Very important, okay? Now the second major group we're going to talk about are the proteins, all right? So here, proteins, look at this, my gosh, this is mind-boggling. Look at how large this protein is. This, I think, is an enzyme. I forget the name of it, but this is the substrates that they work on. Okay, it looks like glucose and some other small molecule here. So look how huge this protein is. Okay, so proteins are among the largest, very complicated, okay, kind of macromolecules. All right, and they do perform a whole bunch of functions. Here's some photographs of different parts of the cell, ER, Golgi, this is all familiar to you. This looks like it's from an animal cell because here you have centrosomes, okay, and etc. But the parts that are sort of whitish in color, this is showing phosphorescence. So they stained these parts of the cell to show proteins, where they're located. So you can see that in just about every part of the cell, you have proteins, so very important, okay? And of course, it's an animal cell because right now we're talking about us, humans, and of course we're animals. Okay, so you have structural protein. So here's this pretty girl with the pretty hair. Hair, of course, is a structural protein. Skin as well, keratin, right? A structural protein. You have storage proteins such as in these seeds, okay, sunflower seeds, all right? Contractile proteins like in muscle, okay, actin and myosin, right? And then here you also have, remember what this is? We just talked about this a few minutes ago, right? This is a transport protein. This is an ATP synthase, yeah? So a whole bunch of these are in the inner mitochondrial membrane, which actually pumps, well, not this one here, but you have ATP synthesis, through which the hydrogens that are pumped on this side will actually diffuse back to the other side, and then every time it turns in the membrane, so here you can see that it turns, it generates an ATP, okay, from ADP plus a phosphate group. Remember that? Yeah, that seems like such a long time ago, doesn't it? Okay. Now, the subunits of proteins, of course, are amino acids. Okay, remember the structure of an amino acid, right? You have a central carbon right here. You have a carboxyl group or COOH on this side. You have an amino group on this side, either NH2 or NH3, depending on whether you have a charge on it or not. Hydrogen on another side, and then you have the R group. Remember that? Yeah? Kind of galloping through these. And here's an image from your text. So you can see that all the amino acids, every single one of them, all of them have exactly the same structure. The only difference between, say, for example, alanine, okay, and glycine is the R group is different. The glycine has just an H, a hydrogen atom, and the alanine has a CH2, okay, CH3, yeah? Anyway, so take a look at these so you can see that the amino acids, all the structure exactly the same. All of the structure is exactly the same. The only thing that's different are the R groups, which are shaded in white here. So if you take biochemistry in the future, you have to memorize all the amino acids. Just draw them over and over and over again. Guarantee, at least to your short-term memory, you'll be able to remember it, okay? Now another thing about the amino acids, okay, that when you do take in proteins, your proteins that you take in, which are of course, you know, protein structures, a whole series of amino acids all linked together, you know, which makes the secondary structure, the tertiary structure, the fourth level of structure, okay? The proteins that you ingest are then broken down to its components in your digestive system. And usually, proteins are digested later on in your digestive system. This is why some people believe, health practitioners think that proteins are not easy to digest, okay? Because it doesn't come until later in your digestive system that it actually is broken down. And another thing is that the components that have been broken down from protein are then moved to liver, okay, and tissues, and then from there, okay, then they're used to build human proteins, such as the ones that we just looked at, you know, the structural proteins, the enzymes, you know, the contractile proteins, and etc. Okay. Now, what we call essential amino acids. Essential amino acids, okay, is that in our bodies, we can actually make 11 out of the 20 basic amino acids. Okay, we can make 11 out of the 20, okay? So therefore, we have 9 essential amino acids. So what does essential mean? Okay, essential amino acids, all right, let's see. They actually mean, okay, that you actually need them, okay, in your diet. All right, see here again, we see these amino acids again. Okay, so we need to get these essential amino acids from our diet. Okay, so if you were to look at this again, okay, so generally, if you have a lack of certain of these essential amino acids, one can get, you know, a person can get protein deficiency diseases like this poor unfortunate child here. Okay, okay, he or she has something, called kwashiorkor. Okay, sorry, I triggered that too late. Anyway, so complete proteins such as animal proteins, such as eggs, okay, very, very good source of complete proteins, right? And if you have a deficiency, you can actually have deficiency diseases such as that poor child did, you know, and that often happens to maybe babies who are weaned, you know, from breast milk, and maybe their diet is very high in carbohydrates, but it has almost no protein in it. So they can have various kind of symptoms, including edema, including swollen fatty liver, orangey hair, very, very listlessness, of course, because if you don't have as many nutrients as your body needs, it's going to have an effect on your health. Of course it is, you know, okay? So the thing is, plant proteins are usually incomplete, okay? But if you combine foods together, beans and corn, so for Native Americans, you know, part of many Native Americans' diets would be beans and corn, right? And see, so they actually complement each other because beans tend to be low in methionine. MET is a sort of short for methionine. And also beans are high in tryptophan and lysine. So these are 3 of our essential amino acids. Now corn tends to be low in tryptophan and lysine and higher in methionine, okay? So, so if you in the future have to kind of remember, okay, what are the essential amino acids, I can kind of give you a little mnemonic, which I kind of got from one of the sites that I looked up. So if we can go to the Elmo here, if you want to take a look at this, okay, you have this bunch. If you actually remember PVT, or private Tim Hall, with a little this. Okay, so these actually are short for the 9 essential amino acids. Okay, so we have phenylalanine, or P, valine, or V, let's see, tryptophan, or T. Okay, let's see, and let me kind of fumble around here to try to look this up. Can't remember what the other one was. Tryptophan. All right. Alrighty, let's see. Okay, tryptophan. And the other one, of course, is tyrosine here, isoleucine, methionine, histidine. You skip the A, and then you get lysine and leucine. Okay? And I know that's fast, but you can kind of take a look at the illustration again. But if in future you need to memorize it, you can just remember private Tim Hall. All right? Alrighty. Okay, let's see. All right. Fats and cholesterol. Okay, our next thing that we're going to talk about next. All right. So first of all, remember that lipids are not soluble in water. Okay, lipids are insoluble in water, and generally in our bodies, you know, we use triglycerides. Remember that triglycerides are glycerol and 3 fatty acids covalently linked, bonded together. So here we see glycerol. Okay, here. Okay, and here you have 3 fatty acids. Now this one here. Remember carbon, 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 and then you have the carbon here plus HH on either side, right? So this is an example of a saturated fatty acid. That means it has all the hydrogens on it that it can. Now this one here, it has a double bond here. That means that with this double bond, this carbon has only 1 hydrogen, this carbon has only 1 hydrogen on it too. Okay, so it's an unsaturated fat, and this is an example of a mono unsaturated fat, because only it has 1 place where it's not saturated. And this one here is a polyunsaturated fats, because it has more than 1 places where it's not saturated. So saturated fats mean that the molecule has, or the fatty acid has, as many hydrogens as it can possibly hold, okay? Because remember, carbon makes 4 bonds, okay? So it will have a carbon here, 1 bond here to another carbon, here to another carbon too, and two hydrogens, okay, which you can't see right here. And when you have a double bond, this one can only, since it has 2 bonds here, 1 bond here, it can only have 1 bond to a hydrogen, so it's not saturated, it's unsaturated, okay? Now generally when we eat, you know, fatty things, and what we have is these triglycerides, they're broken down, okay, by bile that is secreted by the liver, okay, which is formed in the liver and stored in the gallbladder. And also these triglycerides are also broken down with enzymes as well. Then what happens is that they're absorbed, okay, by our gut, all right, and then our body makes them into new triglycerides for function, for its whatever we need it for, okay? Another thing too is that what we call essential fatty acids, that makes sense. Just like the essential amino acids, these are ones that we need to take in from food. Similarly, essential fatty acids are those that we need to get through our food as well. They are the linoleic acid, okay, linolenic acid as well as arachidonic acids. Okay, so those are the 3, right? So saturated and unsaturated fats, we already talked about that, yeah? Saturated fats mean that you generally have, okay, all single bonds between the different carbons. They have all the hydrogens that they could be possibly saturated with. Okay, so this is one type, and this looks like this very similar to the next one here. Okay, now this one I believe is stearic acid. They're actually a little bit different because one has an extra carbon on it than the other. Okay, but here's an example of saturated fats. Why are saturated fats? You kind of hear in the news maybe, saturated fats are not good for us necessarily. Why is it? It's due to the form of the molecule. When you have one saturated fat like this, you have another one making another part of the triglyceride, or a third, what happens? They can actually nestle in with each other and pack together. Okay, they can pack together. So it has to do with the chemical, okay, the chemistry of it that makes it pack together and form solids. Okay, saturated fats, okay? They tend to be solid at room temperature, okay? Some examples include lard, okay, butter, tallow. Tallow is just beef fat, okay? So lard is actually rendered pork fat, okay, in its pure form, okay. Butter, of course, is fat made from milk, and then you have tallow, okay, beef fat. So here's a picture. This is actually a picture of what people in the olden days used to eat, you know. In certain places, they'd actually have a slice of bread, home baked, and then they'd spread lard on it, okay, which is, of course, rendered pork fat. You kind of think, oh, yuck. But really, people did get nutriments from that, yeah, because people in the olden days did a lot more physical work than we do now, okay. So these are saturated fats, and it has to do with chemical behavior because you have no, you know, double bonds in them. These fatty acids can nestle next to each other, so that's one of the reasons why they tend to be solid at room temperature. Okay, butter as well, okay? So here, so unsaturated, you have one or more double bonds, okay? And they tend to be liquid at room temperature because the fatty acids can't nestle in next to each other and make, you know, and kind of slide themselves next to each other and form a solid, all right? So we have monounsaturated fats, which tend to only have a single, you know, a single double bond on them, and some of them are among the best kind of fats for us, with which we'll get into a little bit more in depth a little later. Olive oil, peanut oil, canola oils, very, very good monounsaturated fats. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, why they're so good. You also have, so here we have peanut, okay, olive oil, peanut, and also here canola seeds, which are actually, I think this is called rapeseed, okay, which is used to make canola oil, all right? Then we have polyunsaturated fats, okay, such as corn oil, okay, soybean oil, okay, made from soybeans, and walnut oil, okay, so these tend to be polyunsaturated fats. And in terms of a health thing, monounsaturated fats are sort of held to be more healthy, okay, and we'll get into that in a minute, but than the polyunsaturated fats. But the thing is, unsaturated fats are usually thought to be more healthy for us, okay? And these different kinds of unsaturated fats tend to be plant-based, so this is a generalization, whereas the saturated fats tend to be animal fat-based. Now, the thing too, exceptions, okay? Coconut oil, okay, palm oil and palm kernel oil made from the same plant, different parts of the plant. Cocoa butter, okay, which is made from Theobroma cacao, or the plant that produces real chocolate, okay, as well as cocoa butter, which is used to make white chocolate, so-called white chocolate, okay? So these are solid at room temperatures. These are actually saturated fats, and you might think, whoa, so coconut oil, that must be not so healthy, but they're actually finding that coconut oil is a lot more healthy than people used to think before. There are people who are into nutrition, and they will actually eat coconut oil every day because one thing it's supposed to do? Help you not be as hungry as you would be otherwise, you know. They actually kind of tamp down hunger pains. They make you feel more full, you know, more satisfied, and they are finding that coconut oil is actually very healthy for people, okay? Another thing too is animal sources of polyunsaturated fats include salmon. Okay, look at that nice fish. Wow, doesn't that look great? Okay, tuna as well, herring. Okay, so these are fish oils, okay, from usually fishes that live in kind of cold areas, cold water fishes, especially salmon, okay? So sources of polyunsaturated fats or oils, all right? So some people think that one should eat salmon at least twice a week or once a week. It's expensive though, yeah? But it's very good to eat, very simple to prepare too. If you have good fish, as long as it's really fresh, if you can prepare it very simply, this is the best way to do it. Then you can really appreciate the taste of the fish. You could just you don't even have to put, and since it's a fatty fish, you don't have to put any oil in it. The best way to prepare it is probably to broil it, right? Just broil it maybe 4 or 5 minutes on each side. You can put, what can you put on it? You can actually put some dill and maybe, what do you call that, lemon. Okay, that would be perfect, okay, to eat that, right? So salmon is very good for you. Okay, it is a little bit expensive, but you know, if it's for your health, and we'll talk about it later, sometimes it's best not to spare any expense for your health, okay? Really, it's very hard to live if you don't have health, you know, no matter what other things you have, right? Okay, so here, so omega fatty acids. So here, okay, you can see that these have 2 unsaturated places. So here you can see a double bond between these 2 carbons, and here too, okay? So this kind have polyunsaturated fats. Another thing that makes them healthy is that because they're polyunsaturated, they're supposed to lower the amount of clotting, platelets. Your platelets are actually cell fragments, and what do? They function in helping with blood clotting. Like if you have a wound, when you stop bleeding, what's happening is that your blood is clotting with the platelets, making something called a platelet plug. Okay, so what happens is that if you have enough of these polyunsaturated oils, it's supposed to help prevent clotting, but that can be good if in case you might have deposits in your arteries and such. It can be heart healthy sort of food to eat. Okay, so lots of people say that you should eat like a fatty fish, at least once, maybe twice a week, okay, if you can. Okay, now another kind of fat, okay, is cholesterol. Okay, remember that all these different kind of fats, they're one thing that they have in common is that they're water repellent or they're hydrophobic, right? So cholesterol itself, it has these 4 rings. It's a steroid, okay, with 4 different ring structures. Okay, these 3 and then a 4th. And this is an image of cholesterol. Now, one of the important things about it is that it is part of the cell membrane. So here, a nice depiction of a cell membrane. So you can have these proteins embedded in the remember protein icebergs in a sea of lipids? And here you have all these phospholipids, right, with polar heads and non-polar tails. Well, in the membrane, you can actually have these cholesterol molecules, and they're supposed to be there, okay? They do form a component of cell membranes, all right? Another important job that they make is they are precursors to important hormones, okay, including sex hormones, such as testosterone and estradiol, okay? So we need these hormones, okay, that actually are our sex hormones, plus other hormones as well. And generally, this here, for cholesterol, it's made in the liver, okay, and then transported by certain kind of molecules called lipoproteins. Of course, the lipoproteins has fat component to it. It also has a protein component to it, okay, or lipid component and protein component. So we have what we call the LDLs. This is what some people call the bad cholesterol, okay? Because what happens is that these low density lipoproteins will actually transport cholesterol to body cells, among which you could have, like in your arteries, okay, in certain places in your circulatory system, okay, that can actually lead to cardiovascular diseases. Then you have what they call the good cholesterol, the high density lipoproteins. What they do is they'll remove cholesterol from the tissues, then transport it to the liver where it's broken down. Okay, so it helps to remove it actually removes cholesterol from your tissues. Okay, so here, all right, so in your diet, okay, if you have a diet that is high in cholesterol or in saturated fat, what you'll have is that your body will produce more of these high amount of these low density lipoproteins. Okay, so what do? They'll take the cholesterol and deposit them, okay, in your body cells, including in your arteries, all right? So here, saturated fat, no double bonds, okay? Okay. Another thing too is if you eat monounsaturated fats, okay, that raises the amount of good cholesterol and will lower so-called bad cholesterol. You need both though, but still, monounsaturated fats. That's why nowadays people are preferring that over eating a high degree of polyunsaturated fats, okay? Because these polyunsaturated fats will lower all your cholesterol levels, whether it's LDL or HDLs. Okay, so monounsaturated fats is actually better, okay, for you, right? So here you have some sources of the polyunsaturated fats. We have corn, okay. Here we have soybean, okay. Now another thing we're going to talk about is something that is fairly recent in the news called trans fatty acids, okay. What are trans fatty acids? For one thing, okay, we have natural sources of it, and they're supposed to be pretty good, such as beef, okay, lamb, whole milk, cream, butter. Okay, here's a piece of beef here. If you like meat, that looks really good, yeah, because usually if you order beef or you want to prepare it at home, what you usually want, if you really like beef, is you usually want to have it medium rare, yeah. Here's some sheep, yeah, so some people eat lambs, which are baby sheeps, yeah. I've eaten lambs, so that's not such a bad thing, I guess, but, whole milk, okay, and we have butter, all right? Now then, we generally get these natural sources of these trans fatty acids from ruminants. These are just different kind of animals that chew a cud. They'll actually, eat grass, put it in one of their stomachs and regurgitate it and chew it some more, okay? They're called ruminants. Ruminant, like when you ruminate, that means that you're chewing something over or thinking or pondering. So that comes from this thing, okay? So this here is a little, looks like a goat, yeah? Or is that a lamb, okay? All right, so one of the things people are saying that perhaps this kind of natural sources of trans fatty acids could be anti-carcinogenic, okay? Maybe good for your immune system, to stimulate your immune system, to ward off colds and flus and things like that, okay, in a good way. Not overstimulating it, but stimulating it. Now, what we call hydrogenated, these are different kind of vegetable oils, okay, that result in, okay, margarine, okay, shortening, and peanut butter. Because peanut butter, what is it? Peanut oil, okay, you actually make this substance, and what they'll do is they'll hydrogenate these different kinds of vegetable oils to make this kind of trans fats. Okay, what are actually trans fats? Okay, so you can find them also in crackers and other kind of snack foods such as potato chips and cookies, right? Very tasty. We love them. We humans love them, But this trans configuration, okay, so what we're going to see in a minute what trans is, okay? So trans is this way, okay? So when you have a trans configuration, it sort of makes a zigzag sort of formation. So you have a double bond between these two carbons, one of which is linked to an H, the other one could be linked to more carbons, okay? So pretend you have a C here or a C here, okay? So what happens when you have this is a cis, the cis kind of configuration, this is a cis configuration where you'd have the two hydrogens on one side, okay, of this double bond. Because you have a double bond, the carbon, you can't have a rotation. Okay, so pretty much here in terms of cis configuration, CIS, here you have the hydrogens on one side. When you have a trans configuration, okay, what you'll have is you'll have them on opposite sides. Okay, what that does, it makes a zigzag, okay, in the molecule that will also allow the molecule to nestle closer to other molecules that have the same kind of configuration. Okay, so what that can do, that can lead to arterial plaque, okay, which is bad. Pretty much that's bad. Okay, you can actually have an increased risk of, so here you have the stacking of them closer together, okay? So if you have high trans fats, you have maybe perhaps a higher risk of cardiovascular diseases, okay? Stroke and heart attack. So here's a human heart, okay? So isn't it fascinating? You have all these different sorts of, nutrition sort of things, and it has to do with chemical behavior. This is one of the reasons why in all your biology-based classes you always have chemistry, because everything that the organism does is based on chemistry, okay? And also they're thinking that maybe these high trans fats in our diets might make women have a higher risk of type 2 diabetes as well, okay? In women anyway. Right, so here we have the stomach, here we have the gallbladder, okay, here we have the bile duct, okay, here you have the pancreatic duct. Okay, so the pancreas and blood sugar, okay, the duodenum, okay, and the pancreas. So the pancreas, very important in terms of the production of two hormones, insulin and glucagon, okay, which helps to regulate blood sugar in your body, all right? All right, next we're going to talk about micronutrients, okay? So we talked about macronutrients, including what? Right, protein and carbohydrates and lipids, okay, or fats. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the micronutrients today, including vitamins, okay, and minerals. So the two micronutrients are a broad category, vitamins and minerals. And vitamins oftentimes act as coenzymes. They are necessary to allow certain kind of biochemical events to happen. Yeah, they kind of help facilitate biochemical events by helping the enzymes, okay, to do their job, all right? So for one thing, you can actually divide the vitamins into two types. You have the fat-soluble type and you have the water-soluble type. And among the fat-soluble type are vitamins A and D and E and vitamin K, all right? So one of the ones we're going to talk about is vitamin A, and here's the structure of it, okay? So vitamin A is important, particularly one of the functions that they do is they help your body produce vision pigments such as rhodopsin and other vision pigments which help you to see, okay? Another thing too is if you have a vitamin A deficiency, this is one way that they can tell that vitamin A does have to do with vision, okay? Because if you have a vitamin A deficiency, you can get night blindness. Now this can also happen as people get older. It could be nutritional in its origin. I'm not sure, but if you have a deficiency of the vitamin, okay, you can get night blindness. So some people, when they get older, they don't want to drive at night because they can't see as well at night. Okay, so sometimes what happens is that as you get older, your absorption of vitamins and minerals and other food substances isn't as good as when you were younger or when you were a little kid. Okay, so deficiency of vitamin A can lead to night blindness. Furthermore, okay, the vitamin A is also involved in the maintenance of the epithelia. What are epithelia? They're like the cells that cover your body on the outside as well as the inside. Okay, so here we have a little section of human skin. Okay, you have a hair follicle, you have the epidermis, keratin layer, all this sort of thing, all right? So it's very important in the maintenance, because what happens is that it actually helps you to produce mucus and other substances which helps to lubricate these parts. If you don't have enough vitamin A in your diet, your tissues can become dry. You can even have something called xerophthalmia. Okay, so xerophthalmia, what is xeros means dry. Ophthalmia refers to eyes. So you can get dry eyes, and not just that, you can go blind if you have this condition. Okay, sources of the vitamin A, especially liver, meats, especially liver. Okay, and it's in the form called retinol, which in your body becomes retinol. All right. So liver is a good source. So if there's somebody, your mom says, eat your liver, that's good. Another thing, that in plants, they produce something called beta carotene. Remember all the pigments, all the different colors in fruits and vegetables? And the beta carotene can be processed in your body and change into retinol, okay? Which of course becomes retinol. So this is beta carotene, okay? One structure of it. Okay, and you find it, of course, it's named after carrots, because this is the first kind of foods that people discovered carotenoids or carotene in. So you can see that even in carrots, you have a whole bunch of different kind of colorations and shapes, right? And here, remember when we were talking about biotechnology, remember golden rice? They actually took regular rice, genetically engineered it to produce beta carotene. So in this way, the people who are doing it were hoping to kind of prevent people from other places from going blind, especially people who have a very high percentage of rice, only white polished rice specifically, in their diets with not much fruits or vegetables or meats. Okay, so in this way, they're hoping to head off blindness, okay, blindness due to nutrient deficiencies. Okay, so and another thing about beta carotene is used as an antioxidant. What is an antioxidant? Okay, for one thing, hydrogen peroxide. Okay, this is one form, or hydrogen peroxide, a very unstable molecule. All right, which is why they put it in dark colored bottles and keep it covered, because it breaks down when exposed to air. And this is, I think, superoxide radical. Okay, so these are actual products of our cellular respiration. People believe that these are actually responsible, okay, for death, okay, and also cell death, also cell decomposition and aging too. Now the next kind of vitamin we're going to talk about, okay, is vitamin D. So antioxidants, very important. Eat your fruits and vegetables. Okay, vitamin D is responsible for calcium and phosphorus and what happens with it in your body. Okay, and of course these are involved in development of bone. Okay, and because bone, you're actually making and breaking down bone all the time. Okay, so you have the absorption of your bones of calcium and phosphate from food. You also have the removal of these when you have lower levels of calcium and phosphate in your blood. Okay, so your bones are being made and broken down all the time. Okay, so what happens? Okay, you might have a long bone in this. Okay, what can happen is you can actually do, physical exercise. All right, might even have bone building exercises such as running, such as walking, at a fairly brisk pace. So what happens is that as you're putting compression pressure on part of your bone, what happens, it'll actually remove bone from a part of your bone that is not being built up to the part that you're putting pressure on it. You'll actually build bone in this way. So even if you're in your 30s or in your 40s, or even if you're older, if you do walking, if you do running, any kind of bone building activity, you can actually build bone from that. Okay, so what your body does, it'll actually take bone, calcium and phosphorus, from where it's not being used to where it is needed. Okay, so you can actually build bone and break down bone at the same time. Okay, Another function, okay, of vitamin D, it happens to do with calcium balance in your kidneys, okay, in your levels in your blood, and also in your bones as well. Very important, all right? So vitamin D is made by our bodies when we're in the sun. Okay, so sometimes people call it the sunshine vitamin, right? So here's our Earth, this teeny tiny little speck. Okay, this is the sun, okay? So it kind of gives us an idea about where we actually stand in this universe, yeah? Okay, so the thing is that a precursor to vitamin D, okay, is actually made by your liver and translocated to your skin. This is why when you've been in the sun for a little while, there you are soaking up the sun, you actually have on your skin, okay, you have the vitamin D precursor. So after you've been in the sun for a while, it's a good idea not to take a shower right away, okay? So then your skin can absorb, you know, the precursor, okay, into your body. All right. Then the final steps to actually make this vitamin D happen in your liver and your kidneys. Okay. Here you have your kidneys. Okay. This is like a section through somebody's from the back. Right. You have your adrenal glands here and etc. Okay. All right. Okay. So vitamin D. There are really no source of vitamin D in any kind of plant-based foods, okay, but you can actually make it from going into the sun. You have a little bit in egg yolk, in liver, in cream, some kind of fish, butter, all these animal sources, okay, all right, liver and fish, okay, butter. And the thing is that if you do have a deficiency of vitamin D, it can actually impact bone. Okay, you can have a condition known as rickets, and this is one symptom of it, the characteristic kind of bowing of the legs. So this person definitely had rickets, so you can actually have developmental problems too. All right, okay, so that sort of kind of finishes, and then we're going to do the summary of today's lecture, which was kind of, you know, wild and crazy, all right? But here we have the summary, okay? For one thing, we covered the macronutrients, protein, right? Fat and also carbohydrates. We talked a little bit about some micronutrients, okay, and we will continue with that next time. We talked a little bit about some deficiency kind of diseases. Okay, and I guess that's all that we have for today, okay, for this particular taping, and we'll see you next time, and hopefully you have a very good food that you're going to eat today. You know, maybe we have convinced you maybe to eat more plants. We'll see. Anyway, that's all we have for you for today, and we'll say aloha for now. Bye-bye.